Tonight, we will go on a journey through ancient Buddhist teachings to answer a question that has lived in the human heart for thousands of years. The question is this: what does it mean to be truly free? Not the freedom to get more things, to be more famous, or to win more prizes, but a deeper freedom. A freedom that does not change based on what is happening around us. A freedom that stays steady whether life brings us sunshine or storms, whether people say nice things or mean things, and whether we win or lose. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you're listening from. The ancient teachers spent a long time searching for this steady freedom of mind, and what they discovered through years of thinking was something both simple and deep. They found that this freedom we look for is not something far away. It is not waiting for us at the end of a long and difficult road. It is available to us here in this very moment, with this very breath. And the path to this freedom has a single direction: letting go. In the stories that follow, we will walk this path together. Simply allow yourself to listen, relax, take a slow, deep breath, and let's begin our journey together. We live in a world that tells us we need more knowledge, more trophies, more stuff. This message comes at us from every direction, and we believe it so much that it starts to feel like the truth. We come to believe that happiness is just around the corner, waiting for us in the next big win, the next thing we buy, or the next fun thing we do, and so we fill our days with being busy. We make plans and set goals. We work and try and reach. We add more and more things to do, hoping that if we just do enough, learn enough, and collect enough, we will finally find that place of peace we are looking for. But here is a strange thing. The more we add, the heavier we feel. The more we chase, the more tired we grow. And that place of peace seems to move away from us like the horizon, which you can see but never quite touch. The ancient teachers noticed this pattern in the human heart. They saw how we wear ourselves out, chasing things that cannot truly make us happy. They saw how we spend our precious days spinning in circles, always busy, but never truly arriving anywhere. They watched us pile chore upon chore, worry upon worry, and plan upon plan, until our minds became like messy rooms where there was no longer space to sit down and rest. And because they were very kind, they offered us a different way, a way that seems almost too simple to be true. A way that asks us not to add more, but to let go of what we are already carrying. Let us explore a story about a traveling monk who lived long ago in the high mountain areas of the East. The peaks there were so high that their tops disappeared into the clouds, and the valleys between them had villages where life moved slowly with the seasons. This monk was not a monk of big, fancy buildings or important titles. He owned almost nothing. His clothes were old and patched, the colour faded by sun and rain and years of walking mountain paths. He carried no bag of toys, no school papers, and no letters from important teachers. He slept wherever he was when it got dark, sometimes in caves where the walls were cool and damp, and the only sound was water dripping in the darkness, or sometimes under the big blanket of stars wrapped in his thin robe, feeling the cold mountain air on his face. Sometimes in the simple homes of villagers who welcomed him with whatever simple food they had to share, a bowl of rice, some vegetables, or a cup of warm tea. By the rules of the world, this monk had nothing, no fancy things, no power, and no comfortable house of his own. If you had passed him on a mountain trail, you might have thought he was just a poor traveller moving from place to place. And yet, there was something about him that made people want to be near him. When he arrived in a village, news would spread quickly from house to house. The farmers would put down their tools and wipe the dirt from their hands. The grandmothers would come out of their kitchens, still smelling of wood smoke and cooking oil. The children would come running down the dusty paths, their laughter bouncing off the stone walls. Everyone wanted to be close to this traveller, because when he was there, they felt something rare and precious. They felt peace. They felt as though a cool breeze had passed through the village on a hot day, bringing a relief they did not even know they needed. This monk was known everywhere for his deep understanding. Students and teachers from far away would look for him, climbing the difficult mountain paths, hoping to learn his wisdom. But he never acted like he was better than anyone else. He continued to travel, to sleep under the stars, and to share simple meals with simple people. He laughed easily. He listened carefully. He seemed to carry no weight at all, even though he had seen many of life's sad and difficult parts. That he had discovered something that all his books could never have given him. He had discovered the freedom that comes from letting go. One day, this wise traveller sat down on a flat rock looking over a valley. Perhaps it was evening and the light was turning golden on the distant peaks. Perhaps he could hear the sound of a stream far below and the call of birds going to sleep in the trees for the night. Whatever it was, he took a brush and began to write. What he wrote was like a poem or perhaps a letter. But here is the interesting part. He wrote it to himself. He wrote as though he were giving advice to his own mind, speaking to it the way a wise old friend might speak to someone who has lost their way. The poem begins with a wake-up call. The wise man speaks to his own mind like waking up a sleeping friend. Listen, he says, you have been distracted for a long time now. You have been tricked by the way things look. Are you aware of this? Do you see what is happening? There is no mean tone in his voice, only a gentle hurry. The kind of hurry that comes from love, from truly wanting someone to wake up and see clearly. He continues, right now, in this very second, you are under a spell of seeing things the wrong way. You believe that the things you see stay the same and last forever. You believe that if you just fix everything around you correctly, if you just get the right things and avoid the wrong things, you will be happy. But this is a dream. This is a trick of the mind. You must watch out. Do not let yourself get carried away by this empty life. And then he says something that explains why we are always so busy. Something that might sound as though it were written yesterday for us in our busy modern lives. Your mind is spinning around doing a lot of useless projects. It is a waste. Give it up. All this thinking about the 100 plans you want to do with never enough time to finish them just makes your mind heavy. You are completely distracted by all these projects which never end but keep spreading out like circles in water. Can you feel the truth of this? The way our plans grow, each one making 3 more. The way we lie awake at night with our minds going through lists of things to do that never seem to get shorter. The way we rush from one job to the next, always feeling behind, never quite catching up. The wise man sees this pattern clearly, and his advice is simple and direct. Do not be silly, just sit quietly. The poem continues, and now the wise man looks at spiritual practice itself. For he knows that even here, in the world of good things, we can get caught up in how things look. We can trade one kind of busyness for another and call it progress. He speaks of someone who beats a little drum, the kind of small drum used in ceremonies. The person beats their drum, does their exercises, and others watch and think it is nice. How good they are, they think, how spiritual. He speaks of someone who says beautiful words about letting go of the body, high and holy words. But who still holds that body very dear? Who still wants comfort and fears being uncomfortable? Who still believes deep down that they are just this body of skin and bone? He speaks of all the fancy tools of practice, the special cushions and the beautiful beads and the nice clothes and the fancy ceremonies. All the things that make us look good, that make us feel good, that allow us to tell ourselves a story about how far we have come. And his advice is, forget about it. This may seem mean at first. After all, are not these things meant to help us? Are they not tools to wake us up? Yes, they are. And the wise man does not say they are bad, but he sees something that we often miss. He sees how easily we can get attached to the tools themselves. He sees how we can spend years cleaning our meditation cushion or fixing our room just right while the work of true letting go is not done. We can become so busy acting good that we never quite get around to being free. The tools are like fingers pointing at the moon, but they are not the moon itself. If we become so interested in the fingers that we never look up, we will miss what they are pointing at. And so, the wise man offers this final lesson, the heart of all his traveling and all he learned. the result of all those nights sleeping under the stars and all those simple meals shared in villages. He offers the simplest lesson of all. If you let go of everything, that is the real point. Even though you do not know how to do it perfectly, just let go of everything. That is what I really want to say. Let go of everything. Not some things, not most things, everything. The same truth appears in the lessons of another great teacher from long ago. This teacher was known for being very wise, and students came from far away to learn from him. They crossed rivers and climbed mountains, and they left behind their families and their comfortable homes. They went through hunger and cold and being tired, all for the chance to sit with this teacher and learn the lesson that would set them free. One such student arrived after a long and difficult journey. His clothes were dusty from the road. His feet had sores from walking, but his eyes were bright because he really wanted to learn. He had heard of the teacher's wisdom and was determined to learn the biggest secret, the hidden knowledge that would open the door to freedom. When he finally stood before his teacher, he asked for the secret of freedom. His voice shook a little because he hoped for so much. The teacher looked at him with great kindness. His eyes were soft and warm like sunlight through leaves, and he said simply, "You are not trapped by the things you see, you are trapped by your holding on to them. So let go of your holding on." That was the lesson, all of it. The student may have expected something more complicated, a hard exercise perhaps, or a secret word or a map of special feelings to find. But the teacher offered none of these things. He offered only this simple truth, given freely, like water from a clear spring. You are not stuck by the things you see, the sounds you hear, or the experiences you have. The world you see is not your prison. You are stuck by how you hold on to these things. You are stuck by your grabbing, your clutching, and your refusal to let go. The walls of your prison are made not of stone, but of holding on. And the key to your freedom has been in your hand all along. You only need to open your fingers and let it turn. What is amazing is how this message is the same in many different Buddhist lessons. The ways of doing things may be different. They may use different words, different ceremonies, different ways of sitting and walking and bowing. But when it comes to the heart of being free, they speak with one voice. The Buddha himself said this truth very clearly. He said that the highest peace is found by not holding on. He called this realization the deathless. This freedom that comes when we stop grabbing at things that cannot be held. Imagine water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. But if you simply let your hands be soft and open, the water can rest there at least for a moment before it goes on its way. This is how we are to hold our experiences gently, openly, without grabbing. If the teachers of different groups said the same thing in their own words, the masters of the various schools pointed toward the same moon even if they called it by different names. The quiet ones in the forests, the students in the schools, and the lonely ones in their mountain caves all agreed. The path to freedom is the path of letting go. This is not a path of adding more to our lives. It is not a path of collecting special experiences or winning prizes. It is the simplest of all paths, and perhaps for that reason the most difficult. It asks us to move against our old habits. It asks us to open our hands and let go of what we have been holding so tightly. Perhaps you have noticed how a small child will grab an object with all their strength. Try to take a toy from a young child's hand and they will fight you. The little fingers curl tight, the arm pulls back, and sometimes there are tears and cries. The child holds on as though their life depended on it. We smile at this. We understand that the child does not yet know that there will be other toys, other fun things, other moments of joy. The child believes that this toy, this moment, is everything, and so the child holds on. But are we so different? Do we not grab at our fun things with the same strength? Do we not hold tight to our opinions, our plans, our sense of who we are and how the world should be? Do we not believe somewhere deep inside that if we just hold on tightly enough, we can keep the things we love from changing, from shifting, from eventually going away? The wise man in the mountains understood this about the human heart. He saw it in himself, which is why he wrote that poem as advice to his own mind, and he offered us a different picture. Instead of the tight fist of the scared child, he pointed toward the open hand. Picture an open hand, palm facing up, fingers relaxed and slightly curved. This hand can still receive, it can still hold things gently. A butterfly might land there and rest for a moment before flying away. A few drops of rain might collect in the palm before drying up in the sun. But this hand does not grab. It does not clutch. It allows things to come and it allows things to go. It remains at peace whether it is full or empty. This is the mind of not holding on. Not a mind that has no experiences, but a mind that is free inside the experience. Not a mind that has become cold and does not care, but a mind that has become big enough to hold all of life with kindness and grace. How do we learn this art of the open hand? How do we loosen the grip that we have been tightening for so many years? The traveling wise man gave us a clue when he said that even if we do not know how to practice perfectly, we can simply let go. This means that letting go is not something we win after years of hard work. It is not a prize waiting at the end of a long road. It is something we can do right now in this very second with whatever is happening to us. A thought appears in the mind. We can let it go, not by pushing it away, not by fighting with it, not by pretending it is not there, but simply by not holding on to it, by allowing it to pass through like a bird flying across an open sky. A feeling arises in the body, a pain, a tingle, a warmth, a coldness. We can let it go. We can feel it fully, be there with it completely, and then allow it to change and shift and eventually fade as all feelings do. An emotion grows in the heart, joy or sadness, excitement or boredom, hope or fear. We can let it go. We can make space for it, notice it, even welcome it, and then watch as it changes and passes like weather moving across the sky. The Buddha taught that nothing at all should be held onto as permanent, as something that makes us happy forever, as the solid ground we can build our lives on. When we truly understand this, not just with our thinking minds, but with our whole self, the grip naturally loosens. The fist naturally opens into a hand. The traveling wise man ended his poem with honesty and encouragement. His lesson was direct and simple. He admitted it. But he also knew that simple does not mean easy. We have spent a whole life learning to grab. The habit is deep. It runs through us like water through the roots of an old tree. We will not pull it out in a single day. And yet, every moment of letting go makes the habit a little weaker. Every time we let go, even for a short time, we taste the freedom that is possible. And that taste gives us courage to keep going. It reminds us that the peace we look for is not far away. It is here waiting for us in the simple act of opening our hands. The path is simple. Let go of everything. But we walk it one step at a time, one breath at a time, one small release at a time. And somewhere along the way, we may find that we have become like that traveling wise man in the mountains. We may find that with almost nothing to call our own, we have everything we ever truly needed. For as the ancient teachers remind us, the one who has let go of holding on has found the peace that cannot be shaken. The one who grabs at nothing has their hands free to hug the whole world. Let us pause here for a moment. Let these words settle like leaves floating down to rest on still water. And when you are ready, we will continue together. Having heard the wise traveler's advice to simply let go, we might find ourselves wondering, let go of what exactly? And why is letting go so hard in the first place? To answer these questions, let us take a walk together. Imagine that we are moving through a forest in the fall. The air is cool and carries that special smell of fallen leaves, earthy and sweet and a little sad. Sunlight filters through the branches above, spotted and golden, in shifting as the breeze moves the remaining leaves. Our feet make soft sounds on the forest floor, crunching through the dry leaves that have already fallen, stepping over roots and stones. This is a forest that has stood for a very long time. The trees here are old, their trunks thick and bumpy, their roots spreading wide and deep into the earth. Many people have walked these paths before us, and as we walk, we begin to notice something interesting. Running through the forest, sometimes easy to see and sometimes hidden by bushes, are old stone walls. They stretch on, disappearing into the trees, appearing again further along. Some parts are still standing strong, the stones fitted together with care. Other parts have fallen down, the stones scattered and covered with moss. Who built these walls? And why are they here, in the middle of a forest where no one seems to live anymore? Let us stop for a moment and look more closely at one of these walls. See how the stones are stacked one on top of another. Some are large and heavy, needing strength to lift. Others are smaller, tucked into gaps to make the wall steady. Each stone was chosen by someone. Each stone was carried from somewhere and placed here on purpose. Imagine the person who built this wall. Perhaps it was a farmer working in the early morning light before the heat of the day. Perhaps his hands were rough and hard from years of work. Perhaps he paused now and then to wipe the sweat from his forehead and look out over the land he was clearing, the land he hoped to plant and harvest, the land he hoped to give to his children. He had dreams, this farmer. He had worries and hopes and fears. He had a family he loved. He had neighbors he knew by name. He had a whole life as real to him as your life is to you right now. He placed these stones one by one, building something he hoped would last. And in a way, it has lasted. Here is the wall still standing after all these years. But the farmer himself, where is he now? Where are the crops he planted? The house he lived in? The animals he took care of? Further along the path, we come upon something else. It is the base of an old house, just the shape of stones marking where the walls once stood. The house itself is long gone. The roof that kept out the rain, the door that opened to welcome friends, the windows that let in the morning light, all gone. Only these stones remain, slowly sinking into the ground, slowly being swallowed by moss and ferns and the slow work of tree roots. Someone lived here once. A family gathered around a fire on cold winter nights. Children played in the yard. Meals were cooked and eaten. Stories were told. Tears were shed. Laughter rang out. All the ordinary moments of a human life happened within these walls that are no longer here. Those lives were as real as ours. Those people felt the warmth of the sun on their faces just as we do. They watched the seasons change just as we do. They loved and worried and hoped just as we do. And now all that remains are these stones, these quiet markers of lives that have passed. As we keep walking through the forest, we notice how the trees are changing. Some have already dropped most of their leaves and stand with bare branches reaching toward the grey sky. Others are still dressed in bright colours, red and orange and gold, showing off one last time before the winter comes. This forest knows something about things not lasting. It does not fight the changing of the seasons. It does not try to hold on to summer when fall arrives. It does not feel sad when the leaves fall. It simply moves through the cycle, giving in to each change as it comes. Think about what this forest has seen. Spring after spring, the buds have grown and opened, small green leaves reaching toward the light. Summer after summer, the top has grown thick and green, providing shade for the animals who live here. Fall after fall, the leaves have changed colour and fallen, covering the ground in gold and brown. Winter after winter, the trees have stood bare and patient, waiting in the cold and quiet for the warmth to return. How many times has this happened? Hundreds of times. Thousands of times. The forest does not count. It does not hold on to any special season, wishing it would stay forever. It does not push away any season wishing it would hurry up and end. It simply receives what comes and lets go of what passes. There is a lesson here if we are willing to learn it. The trees do not suffer over the falling of their leaves. They do not spend the summer worrying about the winter to come. They do not spend the winter wishing for the summer that has passed. They live fully in each season, reacting to the conditions of the moment, and then they let go. What would it be like to live this way? to receive each experience as it comes fully and openly, and then to let it go when it passes. To stop fighting against the natural rhythm of change that moves through all things. The ancient teachers used many pictures to point toward this truth of constant change. One of the most beautiful is the picture of a river. You have probably stood beside a river at some point in your life, watching the water flow past. The top catches the light and sparkles. Leaves and sticks float by, carried along by the water. The water moves and moves and moves, never stopping, never pausing, always flowing toward the sea. Now, here is an interesting question. Is it the same river you are watching from one moment to the next? In one way, yes. You might say, I am standing beside this river, and you would point to the water flowing past. But in another way, the river you are looking at right now is not the same river you were looking at a moment ago. That water has already flowed down. New water has taken its place. The river is not a thing. It is a process, a continuous flowing, a constant becoming and passing away. Our lives are like this river. We speak of ourselves as though we were solid and never changing. This is who I am, we say, pointing to our bodies, our personalities, our memories, our beliefs. But when we look closely, we see that everything is flowing. The body we have today is not the body we had 10 years ago. The thoughts passing through our minds right now will be gone in a moment, replaced by new thoughts. Our emotions shift and change like weather. Our situations change, sometimes slowly, sometimes very fast. There is no solid ground to stand on. There is only the river flowing and flowing, carrying us along whether we fight it or give in. Sometimes the changes in our lives are gentle and slow, like the slow turning of the seasons. We barely notice them happening. One day we look in the mirror and realize that our hair has gone grey, and we wonder when that happened. One day we notice that our children have grown tall, and we cannot quite remember them being small. But sometimes the changes come suddenly without warning. We may be moving through our days in the ordinary way, everything familiar and steady, and then something happens that turns our whole world upside down. It might be a sickness that arrives without being asked, changing our lives in a single afternoon. It might be a loss that we never imagined, a goodbye we were not ready to say. It might be a natural disaster, a storm, or a flood, or an earthquake that washes away in hours what took years to build. It might be a change in situations, a job that ends, a relationship that changes, or a door that closes unexpectedly. These sudden changes can shake us to our core. They remind us, sometimes painfully, that we are not in control, that the steadiness we thought we had was always more fragile than we knew, that the ground under our feet was never as solid as it seemed. The ancient teachers did not say these things to scare us. They said them out of kindness, because they knew that seeing the truth clearly, even when it is hard, is the beginning of freedom. When we understand that change is not a mistake but the very nature of living, we can begin to make peace with it. We can begin to loosen our grip on the way we think things should be and open ourselves to the way things actually are. There is a gentle puzzle at the heart of this lesson on things not lasting. On one hand, nothing lasts. The stone walls fall apart, and the leaves fall, the river flows on, our lives move forward, and we cannot go back, not even for a moment, to the way things were before. On the other hand, nothing is truly lost. The farmer who built the wall is gone, but the wall stays as a sign of his work. The people who lived in that house have passed on, but the love they shared, the kindness they showed, the lives they touched, these things spread out in ways we cannot see. The leaves that fall from the trees rot and become part of the dirt, feeding the roots of the trees that will grow new leaves in the spring. Everything is connected. Everything is part of one great flowing. When we see this clearly, the fact that things don't last is not only a reason for sadness, it is also a reason for wonder. How amazing that anything exists at all, for how precious each moment becomes when we understand that it will not come again. A teacher once said that it is not change that makes us suffer. It is our fighting against change. It is our demand that things should stay the same, that we should be able to hold on to what we love, that change should not touch us. This fighting is like trying to stop a river with our hands. We cannot win, and the effort makes us tired. But when we stop fighting, when we let the river flow, something amazing happens. We find out that we can float. We find out that the river itself will carry us. We find out a peace that does not depend on things staying the same. Let us pause in our walk through the forest and watch a single leaf fall from a tree. See how it lets go of its hold on the branch. There is no fight, no grabbing, no trying to hold on a little longer. When the time comes, the leaf simply lets go. Watch it float down through the air. It does not fall in a straight line. It turns and spins and floats, caught by little breaths of air, dancing its way toward the ground. There is something beautiful in this fall, something graceful and slow. Finally, the leaf comes to rest on the forest floor, joining all the other leaves that have fallen before it. It will lie here through the fall and winter. It will be covered by snow. It will slowly break down and become part of the dirt. And in the spring, its food will feed the tree that will grow new leaves, and the cycle will continue. The leaf does not feel sad about its falling. It does not wish it could climb back up to the branch. It simply takes part in the great turning, giving itself to the process, whilst letting go completely. Can we learn to fall like this? Can we learn to meet the changes in our lives with this kind of grace? Not grabbing, not demanding that things should be different than they are, but simply letting go and trusting the process. We return now to the picture we looked at in the last part, the picture of the open hand. We spoke of how the wise traveler taught us to hold our experiences lightly without grabbing. Now we can understand more deeply why this matters. When we try to hold on to things that are constantly changing, we make suffering for ourselves. It is like trying to grab water or catch the wind. The tighter we hold, the more we lose. The harder we try to keep things the same, the more painful their unavoidable change becomes. But when we learn to hold our experiences with open hands, something shifts. We can still love deeply. We can still be part of our lives. We can still enjoy beauty and connection and joy. But we do so without holding on, without demanding that these experiences stay forever, without building our safety on things that cannot give it. This is not being cold or not caring. It is actually a deeper kind of love. It is a love that says, I treasure this moment exactly as it is without needing it to be different, without needing it to last. It is a love that can hug change rather than fighting it because it understands that change is part of the very fabric of living. As we reach the edge of the forest and look out over the open land, we might take a moment to think about what we have seen. The stone walls slowly returning to the ground. The empty bases where families once lived. The leaves falling from the trees. The river flowing forever toward the sea. All of this is temporary. All of this is change. And when we see it clearly, when we stop fighting it and start accepting it, we find out something surprising. There is a peace that stays even in the middle of change. There is a quiet at the heart of the flowing. There is something in us that can watch the coming and going without being washed away by it. The ancient teachers pointed toward this peace again and again. They said that when we let go of our holding on to things that cannot make us happy, we find a deeper happiness. When we let go of our grip on things that cannot give us safety, we find a safety that nothing can shake. This is not something we win someday in the future. It is something we can taste right now. Was in any moment when we simply stop grabbing and allow things to be as they are. In any moment when we remember that change is not our enemy but our teacher. In any moment when we let go, the forest knows this peace. The falling leaves know it, the flowing river knows it, and somewhere deep inside, under all our grabbing and fighting, we know it too. Let us rest here for a moment, take a breath, and let it go. And when you are ready, we will walk on together. We have begun to see that everything changes. The walls we build eventually fall. The leaves we like eventually fall. The moments we treasure eventually pass. And we have heard the ancient lesson that freedom comes through letting go, through loosening our grip on experiences that cannot be held. But knowing this and living this are two very different things. Or we may understand in our minds that holding on brings suffering, and yet we find ourselves holding on anyway. We may truly want to let go, and yet our fingers seem to tighten by themselves. Why is this so? What is it that makes letting go so hard? The Buddha, in his great kindness, did not simply tell us to let go and leave us to figure out the rest on our own. He also pointed out the specific places where we tend to hold on, the specific traps that catch us again and again. He shone a light into the corners of the heart, where holding on hides so that we might see it clearly and begin to free ourselves. One of the most common places we hold on is to the fun things of the senses, the things we see and hear and taste and smell and touch, the experiences that feel good, that bring us enjoyment, that make us want more. This is the wanting mind, the part of us that reaches toward good experiences and tries to hold on to them, the part that says, yes, this, more of this. Do not let this end. There is nothing wrong with enjoying good experiences. Life gives us many beautiful gifts, and we are meant to receive them. But there is a difference between receiving a gift with thanks and grabbing at it with desperation. There is a difference between liking what is here and demanding that it stay forever. The wanting mind does not know this difference. It only knows that it wants. Let us explore a story about a person who meditates and learns something important about the wanting mind. This person had traveled far from home to practice in a monastery in the East. The monastery was a simple place with few comforts. The rooms were small and empty, and the daily routine was strict, and the food was very basic. Each day the meals were the same: plain rice, simple vegetables, tea. There was nothing fancy, nothing rich, nothing to make the taste buds excited. This was on purpose. Of course, the monastery was a place for training the mind, not for giving in to the senses. The simple food was part of the practice. In the evenings, sometimes the monks and visitors would be served tea and fruit. But even here the portions were small, just a cup of tea and perhaps 2 small bananas. And when we say small, we mean small. These were not the large yellow bananas you might find in a store. These were tiny things, no longer than a finger, just a few bites each. Now, this person had been practicing for some time. The mind was becoming steady. Focus was growing sharper. There was clarity and quiet, and a deepening sense of peace. Sometimes during sitting meditation, the person would enter states of great calm and understanding. The mind would become bright and focused. Awareness would become clear and exact. In these moments, it seemed as though the doors of understanding were beginning to open. On one specific evening, the person was sitting in just such a state. The meditation was going beautifully. The mind was settled and clear. Understanding seemed close, almost within reach. This was the kind of sitting that practitioners dream about, the kind where everything comes together, where all the effort and patience of practice seems to work. And then from somewhere in the monastery came the sound of a bell, the tea bell. It was time for the evening snack. And now consider the choice that showed up in that moment. On one hand, there was this beautiful meditation, this opening into deeper understanding, this taste of the freedom that the lessons promise. On the other hand, there were 2 very small bananas and a cup of tea. From the outside, the choice seems easy. Who would trade a look at waking up for a few bites of fruit? Who would step away from the door of freedom for something so small and ordinary? But the wanting mind does not work in this way. The wanting mind heard the bell and it wanted the bananas. It did not care about waking up or freedom or deeper understanding. It cared about those 2 small pieces of fruit. And so the person got up and went to tea. This story is told not to make anyone feel bad, or to say someone was wrong, but to show something true about all of us. The wanting mind is strong. It keeps going. And it does not only turn on for big and exciting fun things, it can be started by the smallest things. A specific food, a comfortable seat, a few minutes of boring fun, the smell of something cooking, the promise of a good feeling, however short. We might think that if we could just remove the big temptations from our lives, we would be free. But the wanting mind is not so easily beaten. It will find something to want. It will make desire out of the most ordinary situations. It will turn a tiny banana into a prize that cannot be refused. This is why the path of freedom is not about fixing our outside world perfectly. It is not about taking all good things out of our lives so that we have nothing to want. It is about understanding the nature of wanting itself, seeing how it works in the mind, and learning not to be controlled by it. The person who chose the bananas over meditation was not a failure. That person was simply being human. But there is something to learn from that moment of choice. Something about how easily we can be pulled away from what matters most. Something about the surprising strength of even small desires. As one teacher put it, the power of wanting is strong, even when the object is small. The wanting mind does not only reach for physical fun like food and comfort, it also reaches for the fun of the mind itself, the fun of daydreaming, the fun of imagining things, the fun of being lost in thought. Have you noticed how much time you spend somewhere other than where you are? Your body might be sitting in a room, but your mind is far away, playing back a talk from yesterday, practicing a talk for tomorrow, imagining scenes that may never happen, visiting memories that passed a long time ago. There is a certain sweetness in this wandering. The mind seems to enjoy it. Even when the thoughts are not especially good, even when we are worrying or planning or thinking about old problems, there is something almost comfortable about being lost. It is familiar. It is the water we have been swimming in for so long that we hardly notice it anymore. But here is something interesting. When we are lost in thought, we are not really living our lives. We are living in a kind of dream, a movie in our mind that plays on the screen of awareness, while the actual moments of our lives slip by without being noticed. The cup of tea gets cold while we think about something else. The sunset shines and fades while we are lost in planning. The people we love talk to us, and we only half hear them through the fog of our own mental talk. The ancient teachers called this a kind of sleep, a trance, a spell. They said we are like people who are dreaming and do not know they are dreaming. The whole of the spiritual path, in a way, is about waking up from this dream. There is a helpful practice for working with the wandering mind, especially when it tends to wander down the same paths again and again. Most of us have certain patterns in our thinking, familiar roads that the mind likes to travel. Perhaps there is a repeating fantasy, something we imagine over and over. Perhaps there is a worry that we visit many times even though thinking about it never seems to help. Perhaps there is an old memory that we play back, or an imaginary talk that we practice, or a daydream that we return to whenever we are bored or uncomfortable. These mental paths can feel very strong. When the mind turns toward them, there is a kind of pull, a feeling that we need to go down this road, that there is something important waiting for us at the end. But here is the truth. These paths are dead ends. They do not lead anywhere. We walk down them again and again. And every time we arrive at the same place, which is nowhere, and then we have to turn around and come back and start again. The practice is simply to recognize this, to see right at the start of the familiar path that it is a dead end, to place a sign in the mind that says quite clearly this road goes nowhere. We do not have to fight with the thought or push it away or pretend it is not there. We simply admit the truth. This is a dead end. I have been down this road many times. It has never taken me anywhere. I do not have to go down it again. Sometimes the mind will go down the road anyway. That is fine. We are not trying to win perfect control. We are simply planting seeds of awareness, little reminders that can help us wake up from the dream a moment sooner. And sometimes, more and more often, as we practice, the sign will work. We will see the dead end clearly, and we will not bother to walk down that road. We will stay here in this moment, in this breath, in this life. None of this means that we should not enjoy the fun things of life. The Buddha did not teach that fun is bad or that we should punish ourselves by avoiding all enjoyment. He himself, after years of extreme suffering, realized that this way does not lead to freedom. He called it one of the two extremes to be avoided, the other being a life of not caring and doing whatever feels good. The middle way is not about saying no to fun. It is about changing our relationship to fun. It is about learning to receive good experiences without grabbing at them, to enjoy them without demanding that they go on, to like them without building our happiness on them. When we eat something yummy, we can taste it fully, liking each bite, being there with the flavors and feels. And when the meal is over, we can let it go. We do not need to immediately start planning the next meal, or feeling sad that this meal is finished, or trying to make the exact same experience tomorrow. When we see something beautiful, we can take it in with our whole self, letting it fill our eyes and our heart. And when we move on, we can let it go. We do not need to own the beautiful thing or worry that we will never see something so beautiful again, or feel bad that the beauty is temporary. When we spend time with someone we love, we can be fully there, giving them our whole attention, receiving the gift of their presence. And when we leave, we can let them go. We do not need to hold on or grab or hold on so tightly that we squeeze the joy out of the connection. This is the art of receiving without grabbing. It is the practice of enjoying life while staying free inside life. Let us return for a moment to our meditator and those two small bananas. What happened after the tea bell rang? The person got up, went to the room, drank the tea, ate the bananas, and then returned to the meditation pillow. The beautiful focused state from before was gone. Of course, that moment had passed. Now there was just an ordinary sitting with an ordinary wandering mind with all the usual challenges and distractions. Was something lost in a way? Yes. That specific chance had passed. But the person learned something valuable that evening, something that could not have been learned any other way. The person saw directly and clearly the power of wanting. The person felt how easily the mind can be pulled toward good things, even tiny ones, even when something much more precious is at risk. This seeing is itself part of the path. When we notice ourselves grabbing, we are already a little bit free. We are no longer completely lost in the spell of wanting. We are beginning to wake up. The great teachers tell us that understanding does not only come in big flashes of light, it also comes in small recognitions, humble moments of seeing ourselves clearly. Each time we notice the wanting mind in action, we make its grip a little weaker. Each time we watch desire without being completely washed away by it, we grow a little more free. And so, the person who chose bananas over meditation did not fail. That person simply took another step on the path, a step that happened to go through the food room. There is a beautiful quality that the Buddhist tradition calls contentment. It is the feeling of having enough, of not needing more, of being happy with what is there. Contentment does not mean that we never try for anything, or that we accept bad situations without trying to change them. It means that we are not constantly pushed by the feeling that something is missing, that we need more, that happiness is waiting somewhere other than where we are. The wanting mind is never content. It cannot be because its nature is to want. As soon as one desire is finished, another starts. The wanting mind is like a fire that grows bigger the more wood it is given. The only way to find peace is not to feed it forever, but to see through it, to recognize that no amount of getting will ever be enough. The Buddha said, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." Think about what this means. We often believe that we will be content when we have enough money, enough things, enough fun experiences. But the Buddha turns this around. Contentment itself is the treasure. When we have contentment, we are already rich no matter how little we own. When we lack contentment, we are poor no matter how much we collect. This does not mean forcing ourselves to feel happy when we do not. It means seeing clearly how the wanting mind works, how it promises happiness and gives only more wanting. When we see this clearly enough, contentment begins to start on its own. We stop reaching for the next thing. We settle into this moment. We find out that what we have been looking for was here all along. There is a phrase that some teachers use. This is enough. It is a simple phrase, just 3 words, but it holds a deep lesson. When we are eating and the wanting mind reaches for more, this is enough. When we are resting and the wanting mind looks for fun, this is enough. When we are sitting in meditation and the wanting mind imagines something better, this is enough. And this does not mean giving up or losing. It means recognizing. It means seeing that the present moment, just as it is, holds everything we need. It means understanding that happiness is not hiding in the next experience, the next fun thing, the next win. Happiness is available now if we can simply stop reaching for something else. The person with the bananas eventually learned this. Perhaps not that night, perhaps not even that year, but eventually. And when that learning came, it did not arrive as a big surprise, but as a quiet settling, a gentle coming home, a simple willingness to be there with whatever was happening without needing it to be different. This is the freedom that the lessons point toward. Not a freedom from experience, but a freedom inside experience. Not a freedom from fun, but a freedom from the desperate grabbing that turns fun into pain. Not a life without enjoyment, but a life where enjoyment no longer has us by the neck. And it starts, as all things start, with seeing clearly, with noticing the wanting mind when it arises, with recognizing the dead-end roads of old thinking, with placing a gentle sign that says, "This way goes nowhere," with choosing again and again to come back to the present moment, to this breath, to this life, to this perfectly good now. Let us pause here for a moment. Take a breath, let it go, and when you are ready, we will continue together. We have seen how the wanting mind reaches for good experiences, how it grabs at the small fun things of the senses and pulls us away from the deeper happiness of being here and having peace. But the wanting mind is not the only place where we hold on. There is another kind of grabbing that is harder to see and in some ways even more powerful. It does not reach for food or comfort or good feelings. It reaches for something that seems much more logical, much more fair, much more necessary. It reaches for being right. We hold on to our views, our opinions, our beliefs about how things are and how they should be. We hold tight to our explanations of events, our judgments of people, our positions on questions, large and small. And this holding on, like all holding on, makes suffering. It closes our hearts, makes our minds narrow, and separates us from others who see things differently. The Buddha spoke of this habit with great clarity. He said that attachment to views is one of the deepest ways of being stuck, one of the most stubborn blocks to freedom. We may be willing to let go of many things, but our opinions, our feeling that we understand how things really are, this is much harder to let go of. And yet let go of it we must, if we want to find the peace that does not depend on being right. Think for a moment about how it feels to be sure, to know without doubt that you are right and someone else is wrong. There is a kind of satisfaction in it, a feeling of being solid and safe. The world makes sense, things are clear, you know where you stand. But notice also the tension in this being sure. Notice the hidden hardness it makes in the heart. When we are sure, we are also ready to fight. We are braced against anyone who might challenge our view. We are ready to argue, to prove our point, to show why we are correct and others are mistaken. This is not a peaceful state. It is a state of quiet war, of constant watching, of protecting our spot against all who might threaten it. And here is something strange. We often have strong opinions about things we know very little about. We make judgments quickly based on a little bit of information, and then we hold those judgments as though they were precious treasures that must be protected at all costs. Someone says something, and within moments, we have decided what kind of person they are. We read a headline and within seconds, We have made an opinion about a complicated situation we barely understand. We meet an idea that is different from our own, and we say no to it before we have truly thought about it. The mind does this so quickly, so automatically, that we hardly notice it happening. And once an opinion is made, it becomes part of who we are. To question the opinion feels like questioning ourselves. To admit we might be wrong feels like a kind of losing. But what if it is not losing? What if admitting we do not know is actually a kind of winning? What if letting go of being sure brings not loss, but freedom? Let us explore a story about a practitioner who found out the freedom of not knowing. This person had spent many years studying and practicing in one specific group. The lessons of this group had become deeply familiar, like a well-worn path through a forest. The person knew the markers, understood the ground, could travel with confidence. One of the main lessons of this group was that those who have fully woken up do not return after they pass from this life. They have finished the journey. They have reached the other side, and they do not come back. This lesson made sense to the person. It fit with everything else that had been learned. It was accepted without question, held as simply true. Then one day, the person met something confusing. It was an announcement for a talk by a great teacher from a different group. This teacher was famous for his deep understanding, his kindness, his wisdom. People traveled far just to be with him. But the announcement said something strange. It described this teacher as a person who had come back, a famous wise man who had lived thousands of years ago. The person's mind stopped. This could not be right. According to everything the person had learned, that old wise man would not have come back. He had been fully woken up. He would not be born again. And yet here was this announcement from a group with its own old history and its own great teachers saying something else. The person felt a kind of inner fight, a tightness, a need to fix this problem. Which view was correct? Whose understanding was right? The question seemed important, even urgent, and then something changed. In a moment of unexpected clarity, the person realized something simple but deep. I do not know. Not my group is right and theirs is wrong. Not their group is right and mine is wrong. Just I do not know. The person had never personally checked whether woken up people come back or not. This was not something that had been seen directly, studied firsthand, confirmed through personal experience. It was simply a lesson that had been accepted, a belief that had been taken on, a view that had been held. And the same was true of the other group's lesson. The person had not checked that either. Both were simply views passed down through years held with different levels of belief by different groups of practitioners. In that moment of admitting I do not know, something let go. The tightness in the mind became soft. The need to be right went away. The person could like both lessons without needing to choose between them, without needing to fight for one against the other. And more than that, the person found out that it was not necessary to have an opinion about everything. It was possible to simply not know and to be at peace with not knowing. It was possible to hold questions open, to let mysteries stay mysterious, to rest in the space of not being sure. This was not falling into confusion or not caring. It was a release from the weight of having to know, of having to be right, of having to have the answers. And in that release, the heart opened wider than it had been in a very long time. The Buddha spoke often about the dangers of holding on to views. He saw how much suffering it makes, not just for people, but for whole groups, whole countries, whole generations. Think of how many fights throughout history have been started by holding on to beliefs. People have hurt one another, sometimes terribly, because of their opinions. Families have been pulled apart. Friendships have been ruined. Groups have been divided. All because different groups held different views and could not let go of the need to be right. This does not mean that all views are the same, or that truth does not matter, or that we should never take a stand on anything. Some views lead to harm, and it is right to be against them. Some views lead to good things, and it is right to support them. Using judgment is important. Wisdom is necessary. But there is a difference between holding a view with wisdom and holding on to a view with attachment. When we hold a view with wisdom, we can think about other ways of seeing. We can change our minds if new facts show up. We can disagree with others without hating them. We can stand firm on what matters while staying humble about the limits of what we know. When we hold on to a view with attachment, we become stiff. We cannot hear what others are saying. We protect our spot at all costs. We make our opinion part of who we are, so that any challenge to the opinion feels like a challenge to our very self. The path of freedom asks us to hold our views lightly, to be willing to say, "I do not know," to stay curious rather than ready to fight, to value truth more than being right. Let us explore another story, one that shows what becomes possible when we let go of holding on to our views. Once a meeting was held at a monastery in a quiet countryside. It was an unusual meeting, bringing together people from two different religious groups that on the top seemed to have little in common. There were about 50 people in all, monks and nuns and teachers from both paths. Among them was a famous teacher from the East, a man known throughout the world for his wisdom and kindness. He had spent his life studying and practicing and teaching the way of waking up. He knew the books of his group very well. He had given himself completely to its path. The meeting lasted several days. There were talks and reports, and talks and arguments. The people from both groups shared their understanding, their practices, their ways of looking at the big questions of life. Sometimes they agreed, sometimes they disagreed, but through it all, there was a spirit of respect, a real interest in learning from one another. On the last day, something happened that would be remembered long after the talks were forgotten. The head of the monastery, an old man with kind eyes and a gentle way, was walking down a hallway after one of the sessions. Ahead of him, walking alone, was the famous teacher from the East. At the end of the hallway stood a statue. It was a figure sacred to the monastery's group, a picture of a holy woman of kindness and grace. For the monks who lived in this place, the statue was a central point of belief, a sign of everything they held most dear. The head monk walked slowly, lost in thought. He watched as the teacher from the East came close to the statue, and then he saw something that stopped him. The teacher paused before the statue. He looked at it for a moment with quiet attention, and then slowly and on purpose, he bowed. It was not a small nod or a polite hello. It was a real bow, full and honest, the kind of bow one makes before something holy. The teacher from the East, deep in his own path, with its own books and its own practices and its own ways of understanding, bowing to a sign from another group completely. The head monk felt tears come to his eyes. Later, when he spoke about the meeting, he said that this simple act meant more than all the words that had been said, more than all the talks and reports and arguments. In that one bow, the teacher had shown something that could not be put in ideas or arguments. What did that bow mean? It did not mean that the teacher was leaving his own group or taking on the beliefs of another. He stayed dedicated to his path, committed to his practice, rooted in his own understanding. But he was not attached to his views in a way that stopped him from seeing the holy in another shape. He could recognize truth, beauty, and belief even when they were dressed in different clothes. He could honor what was worthy of honor without needing it to fit his own labels. This is what becomes possible when we let go of being right. We do not become unsure or not care. We do not lose our own ground. Instead, we become big enough to like the ground that others stand on. We become humble enough to admit that the secret of living is larger than any single set of beliefs can hold. One teacher said this beautifully. She said that if we want to see the heart of truth, we have to look deeply, with complete honesty. And when we look that deeply, we begin to see that the heart is the same. Even when the shapes are different, we begin to see that all real paths are rivers flowing toward the same ocean. This does not mean that all beliefs are equally true, or that differences do not matter. It means that when we let go of holding on to our specific way of seeing, We can like the real wisdom in other ways of seeing. We can learn from paths that are not our own. We can find common ground with those who speak a different spiritual language. How do we practice this letting go of holding on to views? How do we loosen the grip of being sure without falling into confusion? One way is simply to notice how it feels when we are protecting a position. To pay attention to the tightness in the body, the hardness in the heart, the fast need to prove ourselves right. When we notice these feelings, we can pause. We can take a breath. We can ask ourselves, is this holding on? Is this attachment? Am I holding this view with wisdom, or am I holding it with my fists closed tight? Another way is to practice saying, I do not know. Not as an excuse or a refusal to talk, but as an honest admitting of the limits of our understanding. There is so much we do not know. There is so much that stays mysterious. To act like we know is a kind of being proud. To admit it is a kind of grace. We can also practice listening deeply to those who see things differently, not listening to argue, not listening while getting our answer ready, but listening to understand. What is this person really saying? What experience is behind their view? What truth might they be seeing that I have missed? The Buddha taught that we should not accept any lesson simply because it comes from a famous teacher or an old book or a respected group. He said we should test lessons in our own experience, see for ourselves what leads to harm and what leads to good, what leads to being stuck and what leads to freedom. This is not saying no to history, but a call to real questioning, a call to hold even the most respected lessons with open hands. When we let go of the need to be right, something beautiful happens. We find a peace that does not depend on having all the answers. We find a contentment that does not need everyone to agree with us. We feel a freedom that is not scared by different views or hard questions. This peace is not the peace of not caring. It is not the peace of someone who does not care about truth. It is the peace of someone who cares about truth so much that they are willing to let go of their opinions to see more clearly. It is the peace of someone who has stopped protecting and started opening. It is the peace of a heart that can bow. The famous teacher who bowed before the statue did not do it for show. He did not know anyone was watching. He did it because it was the natural movement of a heart that had let go of holding on. A mind that had been freed from the prison of fixed views. A person who could see the holy wherever it showed up. This is what the path offers us. Not just freedom from holding on to good feelings, but freedom from holding on to our own thoughts, our own opinions, our own being sure. A freedom that allows us to hold our views without being held by them. A freedom that bows to truth wherever it is found. And in that bowing, in that letting go, in that willingness to not know, we may find that we understand more than we ever did when we were sure. Let us pause here for a moment. Think just for this moment what it might be like to hold things a little more gently. Take a breath, and when you are ready, we will continue together. We have begun to see that everything changes. The walls we build eventually fall apart. The leaves we like eventually fall. The moments we treasure eventually pass. And we have heard the old lesson that freedom comes through letting go, and through loosening our grip on experiences that cannot be held. But knowing this and living this are two very different things. There is a difference between nodding our heads when we hear that everything is temporary and actually meeting that change when it arrives at our door. There is a difference between the peace we feel in quiet thinking and the peace that stays when life shakes us to our very roots. The deepest lessons are not learned from books or talks or even from years of meditation. They are learned in the middle of real life experience. They are made in moments when everything we thought we knew is taken away, when the ground we stood on breaks under our feet, when we are left with nothing but the raw truth of living. Let us explore the story of a woman who learned in just this way. A woman who went into the deep parts of sadness and came out with a heart so big, so kind, so steady that she became a light of wisdom for many others. She was born in a small village in a time and place where women married young and gave themselves to family. Her life in its outside details was much like the lives of the women around her. She took care of the house. She did her duties. She waited, as was the custom, for children to come. But children did not come easily. Years passed. She wanted to be a mother, and that wanting was not met year after year. This was her first lesson in things not lasting, though she did not know it then. The life she had imagined, the future she had expected, did not arrive on time. She learned to wait. She learned to hope. She learned to live with not being sure. Eventually, children did come, and the joy she felt was very big. After so many years of waiting, she held new life in her arms. She gave herself to being a mother with all the dedication of her patient heart. And then the unthinkable happened. 2 of her children did not survive childhood. We will not stay on the details of this loss, for there are no words good enough to describe a mother's sadness when her children are taken from her. And then, as if this were not enough, her husband also passed away. In a short time, she lost nearly everything she loved. The life she had built, the family she had taken care of, the future she had imagined. All of it was gone. She was left alone with her one surviving child, and a sadness so big, it threatened to swallow her whole. She later said that she nearly died from that sadness. For years she was stuck in her bed, yet too broken to be part of life, too shattered to see any way forward. This is not a story we tell lightly. It is not a story with an easy point or a quick fix. It is a story about the very worst that life can bring. The kind of loss that makes us ask whether there is any meaning to living at all. And yet this is also a story about what becomes possible when we have nothing left to hold on to, when every support has been taken away, when we are forced by the weight of our situation to finally let go. For years the world went on around her, but she was not part of it. She was lost in a place beyond hope, beyond comfort, beyond any lesson she had ever heard. And then someone suggested she try meditation. It was a simple suggestion, given perhaps without much hope. There was a monastery not far away. Perhaps sitting quietly, learning to calm the mind, might offer some small help from her suffering. She had nothing to lose. She could barely walk, but she made her way to the monastery. She sat down. She began to practice. What happened next was deep. It was as though all those years of suffering had prepared her for something, as though her heart, broken so completely open, was now able to receive wisdom in a way that a protected heart could not. As though the very depth of her loss had made a space for something new to enter. She took to meditation like a thirsty person takes to water. Her focus got deep, very fast. Her understanding got sharp. The lessons that had been just words to others became living truth in her direct experience. She began to see clearly the nature of things not lasting that she had experienced so painfully in her life. But now she was seeing it not as an enemy, not as a mean force that takes away what we love, but as the simple truth of how things are. Within a very short time, she reached levels of understanding that most people spend lifetimes working toward. The woman who had been stuck in bed with sadness became a source of wisdom and kindness. The woman who had lost nearly everything found out something that could not be lost. What did she find in those deep parts of meditation? What changed a sad mother into a great teacher? She found first of all that the pain of her loss was not separate from the truth of things not lasting. She had learned in the most painful way possible that nothing in this life is permanent. Her children were temporary. Her husband was temporary. Her health, her happiness, her sense of who she was and what her life meant, all of it was temporary. Before her losses, she had known this in her mind. Everyone knows that life is not sure, that people we love will someday be gone. But knowing it in the mind is very different from knowing it in the bones. She had been forced to know it in her bones, in her blood, in every cell of her sad body. And in that knowing, something strange happened. Instead of making her angry or hopeless, The full acceptance of things not lasting set her free. She stopped fighting against reality. She stopped demanding that life be different than it is. She stopped holding on to what could not be held. This did not mean she stopped feeling. If anything, her ability to feel got much deeper. She became known for her amazing love, her warmth, her kindness toward all who came to her. But her love was no longer mixed with grabbing. Her kindness was no longer shadowed by fear. She could give herself completely to each moment because she was no longer trying to hold on to anything. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is holding on. She had learned this not from a book, but from life itself. And having learned it so deeply, she was able to teach it with a power that came from direct experience, rather than just understanding. As news of her understanding spread, people began to look for her. They came with their questions, their fights, their sadness. They came hoping for comfort, for help, for some taste of the peace that seemed to shine from her. She gave them what they needed, but it was not always what they expected. Her kindness was big, but it was not soft in the way we sometimes think kindness to be. It was strong and clear, cutting through lies. She had no patience for comfortable half-truths. She had looked directly into the face of things not lasting, and she would not act like it was different. She knew that real peace does not come from avoiding hard truths, but from meeting them fully. And so her lessons could sometimes be surprising. She said what needed to be said without making it soft for comfort. She trusted that the truth, even when it was hard to hear, was ultimately more helpful than any nice lie. One of her students later remembered a lesson that she never forgot. It was a hard lesson, the student said, but it was exactly what was needed. The student had experienced a terrible loss. Her son had died. She came to the teacher full of sadness, unable to understand why this had happened, unable to find any ground to stand on. The teacher looked at her with eyes that held both infinite kindness and clear truth. And she said simply, "Today your son has gone from this world. Why are you shocked?" The student was surprised. This was not the gentle comfort she had expected. This was something else. The teacher continued, "Everything is temporary. Your life is temporary. Your husband is temporary. Your son is temporary. Your things are temporary. Everything is temporary. There is nothing that stays forever." She went on, "When you are alive, you might think this is my daughter, this is my husband, this is my house, this belongs to me. But when you are gone, nothing is yours." And then she said the words that hit hardest of all. "You think you are a serious practitioner, but you must understand that everything is temporary." Notice what the teacher did not say. She did not say, "Why are you sad?" Sadness is natural. Sadness is human. Sadness is the heart's reaction to loss, and there is nothing wrong with it. The teacher herself had felt sad more deeply than most people ever will. She said, "Why are you shocked?" This is an important difference. Sadness is the natural reaction to loss. Shock is something else. Shock is what we feel when something happens that we did not believe was possible. Shock is the crash between what we expect and reality. Shock is the mind's fight that this should not be, that this was not part of the plan, that somehow a mistake has been made. The teacher was not asking her student to stop feeling sad. She was asking her student to look at the shock, to look at the belief under it. The belief that somehow her son should have been safe from things not lasting, that somehow this loss should not have happened, that somehow she should have been protected from the truth that touches everyone. This is what it means to really learn that everything is temporary, not to have it as an idea in the mind put away with other spiritual lessons, but to have it in the bones, to live from it, to meet each moment knowing that it will pass, to love each person knowing that we will one day leave, to hold each experience knowing that it is already on its way to becoming a memory. When we know that everything is passing, we stop taking things for granted. We stop waiting to show our love for some future moment. We stop waiting until things are perfect to be fully here. We show up now because now is all we have. The teacher's words to her sad student might seem mean if we do not understand where they came from. They came from a woman who had lost 2 children of her own. They came from a woman who knew exactly how that student was feeling, who had felt it herself so deeply that she nearly died from it. This was not philosophy. This was not a lesson learned from books. This was truth that had been made in the fire of real-life experience. And because it had been made in that fire, it had the power to reach into the student's heart and plant a seed of real understanding. The teacher was not ignoring the student's sadness. She was honoring it by telling her the truth. She was saying in a way, I know this pain. I have lived this pain. And I am telling you that the way through it is not to fight against reality, but to finally fully accept it. Not to act like things not lasting is not real, but to let it in so completely that it changes you. There is a kind of kindness that protects people from hard truths, and there is a kind of kindness that trusts people enough to tell them what they need to hear. The teacher did the second kind. It was not gentle in the usual way, but it was exactly what was needed to wake the student up from the dream of things staying forever that causes so much extra suffering. The woman who had lost so much became a teacher of amazing power. Those who met her spoke of her presence, the feeling of peace and love that came from her. She was small in size but huge in spirit. She had looked into the dark hole and found at the very bottom something that could not be destroyed. This is the promise of the spiritual path. Not that we will be protected from loss, not that we will be safe from suffering, but that there is something in us, some part of who we are that stays whole even when everything around us is falling apart. The Buddha called this the steady freedom of mind. It is a peace that does not depend on what is happening. It is a freedom that cannot be taken away by any loss, any change, any big problem in the outside world. This woman found that peace, not instead of her suffering, but through it. Her losses did not destroy her. They broke her open to something larger than her own life. Something that could hold all the sadness and all the joy without being overcome by either. This is what becomes possible when we truly learn that everything is temporary. Not giving up, but freedom. Not being cold, but a love so big it can hug everything. Not moving away from life, but a deeper connection with each precious passing moment. The teacher has long since left this world. The student who received that strong lesson has also passed. Their names and the details of their lives have faded into history. But the lesson stays. It passes from heart to heart, from one age to the next, carried by all those who have heard it and been changed by it. Why are you shocked? Everything is temporary. These words are not meant to hurt. They are meant to wake us up. They are meant to shake us out of the dream that we can somehow hold on to things that are already passing. They are an invitation to stop fighting against the nature of reality and to finally make peace with it. The woman who lost her children and found wisdom did not become a teacher so that others could praise her. She became a teacher so that others might find the same freedom she had found. Or she wanted them to know that it is possible to love without holding on, to live without fear, to meet each moment fully, even though it will soon be gone. This is her gift to us. This is the fruit of her suffering given freely to all who are willing to receive it. Everything is temporary, and in that truth, if we can truly take it in, is the door to a peace that cannot be shaken. Let us pause here for a moment. These are not easy truths to sit with. Take a breath, let it go, and when you are ready, we will continue together. We have explored many of the places where the heart gets caught. We have seen how we hold on to good experiences and to our favorite views. We have seen the strong kindness of a teacher who learned about things not lasting through terrible loss. We have discovered how even the most beautiful spiritual experiences can become golden chains if we grab at them. Through all of this, a single truth keeps showing up like a string through everything we have looked at. That truth is things not lasting. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. What starts will go away. We have heard this lesson many times now. Perhaps we have begun to understand it with our minds, but there is a difference between understanding things not lasting as an idea and knowing it as a real thing in our own direct experience. The ancient teachers knew this difference well. They knew that ideas, however true, can only take us so far. At some point, we must turn from thinking about the truth to actually seeing it, feeling it, living it moment by moment. The Buddha himself said something amazing about this. He said that it is better to live a single day seeing the starting and ending of all things than to live 100 years without seeing it. A single day of truly seeing, he said, is worth more than a century of not seeing. What could this mean? What is it about directly seeing things not lasting that matters so much? To begin to answer this question, let us look at something very simple. Let us listen to a bell. In many meditation rooms around the world, a bell is used to start and end practice. It might be a large bowl made of metal hit with a wooden stick. It might be a small handbell with a clear high sound. It might be a simple chime, the kind you could hold in the palm of your hand. The shape does not matter. What matters is the sound and what the sound can teach us. Imagine, if you will, that such a bell is about to be hit. The room is quiet. The people are settled. There is a moment of quiet, of waiting, of not yet. And then the stick touches the edge of the bell and sound is born. It comes suddenly, a clear, bright sound that fills the space. It is loud and here and alive. It seems to have weight, almost being a thing. It fills your ears, shakes in your chest, says it is there to every corner of the room. This is the starting. This is the moment of birth. But already, even as the sound seems biggest, something is happening. The first brightness is beginning to get soft. The sharp edge of the sound is getting round, becoming gentler. Listen, the sound is changing. It is not the same sound it was a moment ago. It is quieter now, less strong. It has begun its journey from being here toward being gone, from being something toward being nothing. This is the nature of all born things. From the moment they start, they are already on their way to ending. There is no pause, no staying steady, no staying the same. There is only the continuous move from starting toward ending. The bell does not try to hold on to its sound. The sound does not fight to stay. It simply follows its nature, which is to start and then to fade, to appear and then to disappear. Listen more closely. Now the sound is quieter still. You have to pay more attention to hear it. It is slipping away moment by moment, fading back toward the silence it came from. Where does it go? Can you find the line between sound and silence? Can you find the exact moment when hearing becomes not hearing? And now there is silence again. Or is there? Listen to this silence. It is not empty. It is not nothing. It is a silence that knows something has passed through it. It is a silence that holds the echo of the bell even though the bell can no longer be heard. This too is part of the lesson. The sound started from silence, lived in silence, and returned to silence. Silence was there before, during, and after. The sound came and went, but the silence stayed. There is something in us like this silence, something that stays while experiences come and go, something that is not ruined by the passing of any specific sound or feeling or thought. We will explore this more deeply later. For now, simply notice that even when there is no sound, awareness continues. Being here continues. The ability to hear continues even when there is nothing to hear. This is what the bell teaches if we are willing to learn. Now, here is the amazing thing. And the sound of the bell is not teaching us something only for bells. It is showing us the truth about everything. Every experience we have follows this same pattern: starting, living, passing away. A thought appears in the mind. It seems solid, important, strong. But watch it. Where does it come from? How long does it stay? Where does it go? If you watch carefully, you will see that thoughts are just like the sound of the bell. They start from somewhere secret, they stay for a time, and then they dissolve back into the silence of the mind. A feeling starts in the body. A pain, an itch, a warmth, a tingle. It seems so here, so real. But watch it. It too is changing, always changing. It changes in how strong it is, moves in place, changes in quality, and eventually it fades. Even pain, which can seem so solid and forever when we are in the middle of it, is actually a flow of changing feelings, never the same from one moment to the next. An emotion grows in the heart. Joy or sadness, excitement or boredom, love or fear. It can feel like it will last forever, especially when it is strong. But watch it. Emotions too are like the sound of the bell. They start. They fill our experience for a time, and then they fade. No emotion has ever lasted. No feeling has ever stayed the same. This is what the Buddha wanted us to see. Not things not lasting as a philosophy, but things not lasting as the real feel of every moment of our lives. Usually when we practice meditation, we pay attention to what is starting. We notice the breath. We notice thoughts. We notice sounds and feelings. This is good and important. It is the base of awareness. But we can go deeper. We can also notice what happens to what starts. This is a small change, but it makes a big difference. Instead of simply noting sound or thought or feeling, we watch the entire life cycle of the experience. We see it being born. We see it changing. We see it passing away. The Buddha gave very clear directions about this practice. He said that whatever feelings start, whether pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, we should stay watching things not lasting in those feelings. We should watch them fade. We should notice them passing. And then he said something that points directly at being free. He said that when we practice this way, we do not hold on to anything in the world. When we do not hold on, there is no being upset. And when there is no being upset, we find peace. This is a direct path. See the starting and passing. Do not hold on. Find peace. It sounds simple, and in its heart it is. But it needs a kind of attention that we are not used to giving. It needs us to slow down, to look carefully, to become close with the moment-to-moment flow of our experience. A teacher once said that the whole path to freedom is held in the sound of a single bell. If we could truly hear that sound, truly be here with it, from its starting through its fading, we would understand everything we need to understand. Why would this be so? Because in truly hearing the bell, we would see things not lasting directly. We would experience the starting and passing, not as an idea, but as a real thing. We would know in our bones that nothing can be held, that everything is flowing, that there is nothing solid to grab. And in that knowing, the grabbing would naturally relax. Why hold on to what cannot be held? Why hold on to what is already passing? Why build your safety on what is constantly dissolving? The sound of the bell teaches us this without words. It does not argue or explain. It simply shows us. Starting, passing, starting, passing. This is how things are. And when we truly see how things are, we stop fighting against reality. We stop demanding that things stay forever when they cannot. We stop causing ourselves suffering by wanting to hold what cannot be held. This is why the Buddha said that a single day of seeing the starting and passing of things is worth more than 100 years of not seeing it. Because when we see, we are free. And when we do not see, we stay stuck no matter how many years we live. You do not need a special bell to practice this. You do not need to be in a meditation room. You can practice right now, wherever you are, with whatever sounds are here. Perhaps there is the hum of a machine somewhere near. Listen to it. Even a steady sound is changing. It gets louder and softer. It changes subtly in sound. It is not the same from one moment to the next. Perhaps there is the sound of wind, or cars, or birds, or far-off voices. Each sound starts from silence, lives for a time and fades back into silence. Each sound is a bell teaching the same lesson. Perhaps there is simply the sound of your own breathing. The inhale starts, reaches its top, passes. The exhale starts, reaches its top, passes. Each breath is finished in itself, never to happen again, starting fresh and then dissolving completely. This is meditation. This is practice. Not thinking about things not lasting, but directly seeing it. Not believing in the starting and passing, but seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, moment by moment, by moment. When we listen in this way, something becomes very clear. There is nothing to hold on to. The sound of the bell cannot be grabbed. The breath cannot be owned. The thought, the feeling, the emotion, none of it can be kept. This might sound like bad news. If nothing can be held, what hope do we have? If everything passes, what is the point? But the ancient teachers discovered something surprising. It is exactly because nothing can be held that we can finally be at peace. It is exactly because everything passes that we can finally stop fighting. Think about it. So much of our suffering comes from trying to hold on to things that are slipping away. We grab at fun things and they dissolve in our hands. We hold on to people and situations and they change despite our holding on. We build big structures of safety and they fall apart like sandcastles at the beach. This grabbing is tiring. It never works. And yet we keep doing it again and again because we have not truly seen that it cannot work, that it will never work, that the nature of experience is to flow and change and pass. But when we finally see this, when we truly understand that nothing can be grabbed, something relaxes at the deepest part. We stop the tiring work of trying to hold the unholdable. We let the river flow. We let the sound fade. We let each moment be what it is, and then let it go. And in that letting go, we find a peace that does not depend on anything staying the same. Let us bring this lesson into the most close part of all, the breath that is moving through your body right now. Feel the inhale starting. There is a first moment, a moving, a pulling in. The chest gets bigger. The belly rises. Air fills the lungs. This is the starting. Feel the inhale continuing. It grows, gets deeper, fills you. There is a moment that feels like being full, like being finished. But already, even at this peak, the exhale is waiting to be born. Feel the exhale starting. There is a release, a letting go. The air flows out. The chest settles. The belly falls. This is the passing away. Feel the exhale ending. The breath gets thin, quiet, dissolves. For a moment there is quiet, an absence of breath, a space between. And then without any work from you, the next inhale begins to start. This is happening right now. This has been happening since the moment you were born. Starting and passing, starting and passing. Each breath a finished life cycle. Each breath a bell ringing and fading into silence. You cannot hold even a single breath. Try it, and you will see. The breath wants to flow. It will not be caught or owned. It comes as a gift and leaves as a gift. And our only job is to receive it and let it go again and again, for as long as we are alive. When we line ourselves up with this flow, something beautiful happens. We stop fighting. We stop demanding that life be different than it is. We find a rhythm that has always been there waiting for us to notice it and give in to it. This is not giving up or losing. It is wisdom. It is the admitting that life is not a problem to be fixed, but a secret to be lived. It is the understanding that peace does not come from controlling the flow, but from joining it, from becoming one with the starting and passing that is the heartbeat of living. The bell sounds and fades. The breath comes and goes. Thoughts appear and dissolve. Feelings flicker and change. Everything is moving, always moving, never stopping, never staying still. And right in the middle of all this movement, there is the chance for deep peace. Not the peace of things staying the same, but the peace of no longer needing them to. Not the peace of grabbing successfully, but the peace of finally letting go. This is what the bell teaches. This is what the breath teaches. This is what every moment teaches. If we have ears to hear and hearts willing to receive, let us pause here and simply listen. Whatever sounds are there in your world right now, let them be your teachers and let this listening soften something in you. Take a breath, and when you are ready, we will continue together. We have listened to the bell and heard it fade into silence. We have felt the breath start and pass away. We have begun to see that everything in our experience is flowing, changing, temporary. Nothing stays the same. Nothing can be grabbed. And yet through all of this flowing, there seems to be someone here, feeling it all. Someone who hears the bell. Someone who feels the breath. Someone who notices the starting and passing of thoughts and feelings and emotions. Who is this someone? This is perhaps the deepest question we can ask. It is the question that leads to the heart of the lesson on not holding on. Because if there is anything we hold on to more tightly than good experiences, and more tightly than our favorite views, more tightly even than our deepest spiritual understandings, it is our sense of being a self, our sense of being someone. The Buddha taught that this holding on to self is the root of all our suffering. Not the self itself, but the holding on to it, the linking with it, the belief that somewhere in the middle of all this flowing experience, there is a solid permanent someone to whom it all belongs. What if we looked for this someone? What if we turned our attention toward the one who seems to be feeling everything and tried to find them? What would we find out? The first place we usually look for ourselves is in the body. This seems so clear that we rarely question it. When someone asks where we are, we point to our body. When we look in a mirror, we see the body and say, "That is me." When we think about ourselves, a picture of the body usually comes to mind. And yet, when we look more closely, is the body really who we are? The body is constantly changing. The cells that make up your body today are not the same cells that made it up 10 years ago. Your skin fixes itself every few weeks. Your bones fix themselves over years. The body you have now is not the body you had as a child. And it will not be the body you have when you are old. If the body is constantly changing, which body is you? The body of your childhood, the body of your youth, the body you have in this moment, the body you will have tomorrow. There is a lesson that points to something interesting about our linking with the body. It says that we think of the body as self, as me mostly because it is wrapped up so neatly. The skin holds everything together in one box. We look at this box and think, yes, that is who I am. But inside that box, there are organs and juices and processes that we would never say are ourselves. If someone showed you a picture of your liver, you would not say, "That is me." If you saw your blood under a microscope, you would not feel that you were looking at yourself. And yet, these are as much part of the body as the face you see in the mirror. A great wise man from India once said that to link with the body and yet look for happiness is like trying to cross a river on the back of a crocodile. The body cannot give the steady ground we look for. It is changing, getting older, likely to get sick or hurt. To build our sense of self on it is to build on something that will eventually shift and sink under us. This does not mean the body is bad or that we should say no to it. It simply means that when we look for ourselves in the body, we do not find anything permanent, anything steady, anything that could truly be called me. If we are not the body, perhaps we are the mind. Perhaps the self is to be found in our thoughts, our memories, our beliefs, our stories about who we are. We all have such stories. I am someone who grew up in a specific place. I am someone who had specific experiences. I am someone who believes specific things, values specific things, hopes for specific things. These stories feel very personal, very close. They seem to say who we are. But look at a thought, any thought. Where does it come from? Can you find its start? One moment the mind is empty, and the next moment a thought appears. You did not choose to think it. It simply started like a bubble rising to the top of a pond. And where does the thought go? It appears. It stays for a moment, and then it dissolves. Another thought takes its place, and then another. The mind is like a river of thoughts constantly flowing, never stopping. If thoughts are constantly starting and passing, which thought is you? The thought you had a moment ago, that one is already gone. The thought you are having now, it too will pass. The thought you will have next, it has not yet started. We spend so much time lost in thought that we come to believe we are our thoughts. But thoughts are just weather passing through the sky of the mind. They are not the sky itself. To link with thoughts is to link with clouds while ignoring the big blue space that holds them. And what about the stories we tell about ourselves? These too are just thoughts, just tales made from memory and imagining. They change over time. We remember things differently as we get older. We explain our past differently based on our present. The story of who we are is not fixed. It is a work of ongoing storytelling, changed and fixed with each passing year. Perhaps then, the self is to be found in our emotions. Our feelings seem so close, so personal. When we are happy, it feels like we are happy. When we are sad, it feels like we are sad. Emotions seem to be at the very center of who we are, and yet emotions too are just experiences starting and passing. Watch an emotion next time one appears. Notice how it comes from somewhere unknown, fills you for a time, and then fades away. Notice how it changes in how strong it is, how it mixes with other emotions, and how it changes into something else. We often speak as though emotions are what we are. I am angry, we say. I am scared. I am excited. But this way of speaking is wrong. It would be more correct to say anger is starting in awareness. Fear is here. Excitement is happening. When we say I am angry, we join our sense of self with the emotion. We become the anger. And when we are the anger, we have no space from it. We act from it, speak from it, make choices from it. We are carried away by it like a leaf in a stream. But when we notice anger is starting, there is space. There is something that sees the anger, that knows the anger is here, that is not itself washed away by the anger. The emotion is still there, still felt, still experienced, but it is not who we are. It is something happening inside the larger space of awareness. And this is true of all emotions. Joy is something that starts and passes. Sadness is something that starts and passes. Love, fear, excitement, boredom, all of it comes and goes. None of it stays forever. None of it is who we truly are. If we are not the body, not the thoughts, not the emotions, perhaps we are the one who watches all of these. Perhaps the true self is the watcher, the awareness that knows the body, that sees the thoughts, that feels the emotions. This is a very subtle idea, and it can seem like a safe place to rest. Okay, I am not my body, not my thoughts, not my emotions, but surely I am the awareness that knows all of these. Surely I am the watcher, the observer, the one who watches the whole show. Many meditation paths point toward this awareness. They guide us to step back from the details of experience and rest in the knowing of it. And this is a valuable step. It makes space. It breaks the linking with constantly changing things. It gives us a taste of peace. But the most deep lessons go one step further. They ask us to look at the watcher itself, to turn attention toward the one who is aware, to look for the one who is looking. And when we do this, something amazing happens. There is an old story about a seeker who had heard of a great master living in a cave high in the mountains. This master was said to have reached the deepest understanding. The seeker was suffering very much and was determined to receive the lesson that would set him free. After a long and hard journey, the seeker finally arrived at the cave. The master was sitting in quiet, eyes half closed, and totally at peace. The seeker came close and said, "Please, I beg you, teach me the way. My mind is hurting. Please show me how to find peace." The master looked at him with great kindness and said simply, "Bring me your mind, and I will make it quiet for you." The seeker was surprised. "Bring my mind? How does one do that?" He sat down to look for his mind, to find this thing that was causing him so much suffering. He looked in his thoughts, but thoughts were just coming and going. None of them was the mind itself. He looked in his emotions, but emotions too were just starting and passing. None of them was the mind itself. He looked for the thinker behind the thoughts, but when he searched for the thinker, there was nothing to find. He looked for the feeler behind the feelings, but when he searched for the feeler, there was only emptiness. Finally, after searching everywhere, he returned to the master and said, "I have looked for my mind, but I cannot find it anywhere." The master smiled and said, "There, I have made it quiet for you. What did the Master mean? How did searching for the mind and not finding it make the seeker's suffering go away? When we believe there is a solid self at the center of our experience, we feel that this self must be protected, defended, made better. We worry about what will happen to it. We fear for its safety. We fight to get what it wants and avoid what it fears. All of this is suffering. But when we look for this self and cannot find it, something lets go. The one we were trying to protect turns out to be not findable. The one we were worried about cannot be found. The solid center we thought was there shows itself to be nothing. Emptiness, an open space. This is not a loss, it is a being free. We are freed from the weight of protecting something that does not exist. We are released from the tiring work of keeping up a self that was only ever a build-up, a trick, a lie of the mind. The mind is still working. Thoughts still start. Emotions still come and go. The body still breathes and moves. But there is no longer a tight linking with any of it. There is no longer a sense that these experiences are happening to me, that I must control them, that my happiness depends on fixing them correctly. Instead, there is just experience happening moment by moment. There is just awareness knowing what starts. There is just life living itself. And in this, there is deep peace. When we stop linking with the body, with thoughts, with emotions, and even with the sense of being a watcher, what stays? Awareness stays, knowing stays, but it is awareness without a center. It is knowing without a knower. It is experience without someone to whom it is happening. This may sound strange or even scary. We are so used to thinking of ourselves as the center of our experience. We are so used to the feeling of being a someone who is having a life. But consider this. In deep sleep, there is no sense of self. The watcher is not there. The observer is not there. And yet when you wake up, you say you slept peacefully. Who slept? Who was at peace? Or consider moments of being totally lost in something. Perhaps you have been so busy with something, so lost in music or beauty, that for a time there was no sense of self at all. There was just the experience happening without a center. And often when the self returns, and we notice that those moments without self were the most peaceful, the most alive, the most deeply happy. The self is not the source of our being alive. It is actually a kind of tightening, a limiting of the natural openness of awareness. When the self relaxes, when linking loosens, we do not go away. We become more present, closer with experience, more fully here. The Buddha said this lesson in words that can stay through a lifetime of practice. He said, "Nothing at all is to be held onto as I or mine. Nothing at all, not the body, not the thoughts, not the emotions, not the awareness itself. Nothing is to be held as self, as belonging to a self, as saying who a self is. This is not a rule you must follow. It is a description of freedom. When we hold on to things as self, we suffer. When we stop holding on, we are at peace." The seeker who went to the Master was suffering because he believed in a solid self that was in trouble. When he looked for that self and could not find it, the trouble went away. There was nothing there to be troubled. There was nothing there to make quiet. The search itself was the freedom. We can try this for ourselves right now in this moment. Who is hearing these words? Who is aware of this moment? Look for that one. Search everywhere. Turn attention back toward its source. What do you find? When we look for the self and do not find it, we are touching the big mystery at the heart of living. Awareness is here. Experience is happening. Something is knowing this moment. But that something cannot be grabbed, cannot be found, cannot be fixed and said what it is. The wise ones call this not knowing. Not the not knowing of being dumb, but the not knowing of being amazed. The not knowing of a mind that has stopped acting like it understands what cannot be understood. We do not need to figure this out. We do not need to come to a choice about what the self is or is not. We simply need to look, to ask, to be curious about our own nature. And in that looking, in that asking, in that openness, something loosens. The grip of self-linking relaxes. The weight of being a someone gets soft. We begin to taste the freedom of not having anything to defend, anything to protect, anything to keep together. This is not the end of doing things. We still think, still feel, still act in the world, but we do so with more lightness, more ease, more flow. We are no longer carrying the heavy weight of self. We are simply life, living, awareness, being aware. This moment happening. Let us pause here for a moment. You do not have to be someone right now. You can simply be. Take a breath. Let it go. And when you are ready, we will continue together. We have traveled far together. We have walked through full forests and listened to the fading sound of bells. We have sat with traveling wise men and sad mothers, with people choosing bananas and teachers bowing before statues. We have explored the many places where the heart gets caught, the many ways we hold on to what cannot be held. And in our last search, we turned attention back on itself and found out something amazing. When we look for the one who is feeling all of this, we cannot find them. The self we thought was at the center of everything shows itself to be not findable, not there, empty. This is not a loss, it is a door. Now we come to the heart of the lesson, where now we gather all these strings together and see where they lead. Now we ask the most real question of all: how do we actually live this? How do we move from understanding to freedom? The answer has been with us all along, through every story and every lesson. It is simple enough to say in a single breath. It is deep enough to fill a lifetime of practice. The answer is, let go. The Buddha did not leave us to figure this out on our own. He gave very clear, very real help for how to free the heart. And his directions were not hard to understand or just ideas. They were immediate and about experience. He said, whatever feelings start, whether pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, stay watching things not lasting in those feelings. Watch them fade away. Watch the letting go of those feelings. This is such a direct lesson. It does not need special situations or big skills. It simply asks us to notice what is already happening and to see it clearly. Feelings are starting right now. Good feelings, bad feelings, middle feelings. They come without being asked, and they leave without asking to go. This is happening all the time, in every moment of our lives. The Buddha's direction is to be here with this starting and passing, to really see it, to watch, which means to look carefully, to pay close attention, to stay with it and let it show its nature. And what is its nature? Things not lasting, fading away, letting go. When we see this clearly enough, when we really understand that every feeling is already in the middle of passing, something changes. We stop holding on so tightly. We stop demanding that good feelings stay and bad feelings leave. We stop building our happiness on the base of what is constantly dissolving. And then the Buddha said, something wonderful happens. When we practice this way, we do not hold on to anything in the world. When we do not hold on, there is no being upset. When there is no being upset, we personally find peace. It is important to understand what this lesson is not saying. It is not telling us to become cold or far away from our experience. It is not asking us to move away from life or to stop feeling at all. There is a word that can cause confusion here. The word is detachment. Sometimes the spiritual path is said to be a path of detachment, and this can sound like a path of pulling away, of not caring, of being indifferent to what happens. But this is not what the Buddha taught. He taught non-attachment, which is something quite different. Non-attachment does not mean pulling away from experience. It means not holding on to experience. It does not mean stopping our feelings. It means not grabbing at our feelings. The difference is small but very important. A person who is detached has built a wall between themselves and life. They have moved away behind defenses. They may look calm, but it is the calm of not being connected, of being numb, of not fully being here. A person who is not attached is fully here. They feel everything. They are part of life completely. But they do not hold on. They do not grab. They receive each moment with open hands and let it go. When it passes, this is not less alive than holding on. It is more alive. It is life lived without the constant tightness of trying to hold on to what is flowing. It is love without fear, joy without grabbing, and being here without the weight of self. One of the great gifts of this lesson is that it does not put off freedom to some far-off future. It does not say that we must practice for many years before we can taste freedom. It says that freedom is available now in this very moment with whatever is starting. We do not have to wait until we are better at meditation. We do not have to wait until our situations get better. We do not have to wait until we have fixed all our problems or reached all our goals. Right now, something is starting in experience. A feeling in the body, a sound in the room, a thought passing through the mind. Whatever it is already temporary. It is already fading. It is already on its way to becoming a memory. Can we see this? Can we be here with this starting and passing right now? Can we let go of whatever is here? Not by pushing it away, but by simply not grabbing at it. If we can, even for a moment, we have tasted freedom. We have practiced the path. We have done what the Buddha asked us to do. And then the next moment comes with its new starting. And we practice again. And then the next. And the next. This is the path. Not a path to somewhere else, but a path that is walked right here in each moment with each breath. The Buddha said this whole lesson in one sentence. If we remembered nothing else from all these hours of stories and lessons, if we took only these words and practiced them honestly, it would be enough. He said, nothing at all is to be held on to as I or mine. Nothing at all. Not good experiences, not bad experiences, not our views and opinions, not our spiritual understandings, not our bodies, not our thoughts, not our emotions, and not even our sense of being a self. Nothing is to be held on to as I or mine. This is not a rule that we must fight to follow. It is a description of freedom. It is a map showing us where peace can be found. It is an invitation to find out for ourselves what happens when we let go. When we hold on, we suffer. This is not a punishment. It is simply how things work. Holding on is a tightening, a resistance to the way things are. And fighting reality is always painful. When we do not hold on, we are at peace. This too is not a prize. It is simply how things work. Not holding on is an opening, a softening, an agreement with the way things are. And being in agreement with reality is always peaceful. The practice is simply to notice where we are holding on and to let go again and again, moment after moment, for the rest of our lives. Let us close with one more story. It is the story of a woman who practiced in a monastery long ago, who eventually became the head of her group and who one day found out what all these lessons had been pointing toward. This woman had practiced for many years. She had studied the lessons. She had sat in meditation through many hours. She had learned to watch the starting and passing of experience. She had come to understand, at least with her mind, that nothing was forever, that there was no solid self to be found. But understanding with the mind is not the same as being free. And she knew there was something more, something deeper, something that all her practice was pointing toward, but that she had not yet fully reached. One day she was walking slowly through the monastery, leaning on her stick as she had done so many times before. And as she walked, she was watching what started, watching what passed away, watching the knowing itself that saw all of this. She saw that whatever started also passed. This she had seen many times before. Then she saw something new. She saw that the knowing of starting and passing was itself starting and passing. Even awareness, even the watcher, even the sense of being here with experience, this too was not solid. This too was not forever. This too was part of the flow. And in that moment, something changed. She saw that there was nothing to lean on, not the stick in her hand, not the ground under her feet, not even the awareness that knew the ground and the stick. There was nothing solid. nothing forever, nothing that could be a base for a self. For a moment, this might have been scary. The ground was gone. The self was gone. And there was nothing to hold on to, nothing to lean on, and no one leaning. But instead of being scared, there was letting go. She felt something in her mind that had been closed tight for as long as she could remember finally let go. It was like a fist that had been closed so long she had forgotten it was closed. And now at last, it was opening. And as the fist opened, she fell. Not on the floor, but in some deeper way. She fell into the middle of everything. Not holding herself separate, not protecting herself from life, not keeping the split of self and other. She fell into the smooth flow of experience, into the closeness of each moment, into the big openness that had always been there, but had been hidden by grabbing. She was free. Each of us has a closed fist in our minds. It has been closed for so long that we may not even know it is there. It grabs at good experiences and pushes away bad ones. It holds tight to our views and opinions. It holds on to the sense of being a self who must be protected and defended. This fist is the source of our suffering. Not life itself, but the way we close against life. Not experience, but the way we grab at experience. Not change, but the way we fight change. And this fist can open, not by force, not by fighting, not by years of work, but by seeing, by understanding, by the clear admitting that there is nothing here to hold on to, and no one who needs to hold. We do not have to make the fist open. We only have to see clearly, and it opens by itself. We only have to stop feeding the holding on, and it lets go on its own. We only have to look at what we are grabbing and see that it is already passing, already gone, already empty. And when the fist opens, we do not go away. We do not become nothing. We become what we always were under the grabbing, before the holding on, before the whole tiring work of being a self. We become close with life. We fall into the middle of everything. We find out that what we were looking for was never far away. It was here all along, waiting for us to stop holding so tight and simply receive. This is the invitation of the path. Not to become someone special, not to reach some amazing state, but to let go of what we are already holding and to find out the freedom that is already here. Nothing at all is to be held onto as I or mine. These words are not meant to be just believed. They are meant to be practiced, and they are meant to be tested in the laboratory of our own experience. They are meant to be lived moment by moment, breath by breath, until they become not just words, but the very feel of how we move through the world. The traveling wise man said it simply: let go of everything. That is the real point. The great teacher said it strongly to her sad student: everything is temporary. You must really learn this. The master said it to the seeker in the cave: bring me your mind, and I will make it quiet. When the mind could not be found, peace was already there. And the head monk found it for herself on a quiet day in the monastery. There is nothing to lean on, nothing to hold on to, and no one holding. And in that finding, the fist that had been closed for a lifetime finally opened. May we too find this freedom. May we too learn to let go. May the fist in our own minds get soft and open, letting us into the middle of everything, into the closeness of each moment, into the peace that has been waiting for us all along. Let us rest here together for a moment. Feel whatever is here in your experience right now. Take a breath, let it go, and when you are ready, we will bring our journey to an end together. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here.